Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Have you ever felt that deep ache in your chest when you start taking steps to heal, and suddenly the world around you doesn't look or feel the same anymore? It's as if the moment you begin putting yourself first, setting boundaries, or finally refusing to live under the weight of old wounds, the people around you shift too. For many women, especially in midlife, this feels both liberating and terrifying. You've spent years holding things together, caring for family, sacrificing in relationships, showing up for everyone else while silencing your own needs. Then, one day, something inside of you whispers that you can't keep living like this. Maybe it's exhaustion that forces you to stop. Maybe it's heartbreak that cracks you open. Maybe it's a quiet but undeniable desire for more. Whatever it is, once you step onto the path of healing, you start to notice that not everyone is clapping for you, and that realization can sting more than the original pain you're trying to heal. It feels unfair, doesn't it? You decide to take back your life, to live with more honesty, to stop pretending you're okay when you're not, and instead of applause, you sometimes get resistance, silence, or even judgment. It almost feels like punishment. You wonder, why can't people just be happy for me? Why does my healing feel like a threat to the people I love? This is the struggle so many women face, yet very few talk about it openly. It's a strange loneliness, because while you're learning to love yourself, you're also losing pieces of your old world. The support you thought would be guaranteed doesn't always show up. And in those quiet moments, when you're lying awake at night, you might question whether the cost of healing is too high. But let me offer you a different way of seeing it. That resistance, that discomfort, even that silence you experience when you begin to grow, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something real. Growth is disruptive by nature. Healing asks us to shed patterns we've lived in for decades, to break cycles we've inherited, to step away from unhealthy dynamics we once called normal. And when you change, the people around you can't help but respond. Some will cheer you on because they love seeing you thrive. Others will feel uneasy because your transformation shines a light on the places where they haven't yet faced their own pain. A few may even try to drag you back into old versions of yourself because it's more comfortable for them to keep you small. The truth is, every healing journey comes with its share of grief. You grieve the version of yourself who tolerated too much. You grieve the relationships that only worked because you abandoned your needs. You grieve the illusion that everyone who says they love you actually loves you unconditionally. It's painful, yes, but it's also necessary. Without that shedding, without that disruption, there can be no rebirth. Healing is not neat or tidy. It's raw, messy, and often misunderstood. And yet, beneath the discomfort, there's a steady pulse of hope. That's what I want you to hold on to right now, the hope. Because while it may feel like the ground beneath you is cracking, what's actually happening is that the soil of your life is being broken open so new roots can take hold. Healing isn't about making other people comfortable. It's about reclaiming your voice, your dignity, your joy. And when you begin to do that, you start noticing something extraordinary. You attract people who meet you at the level of your growth, not the level of your wounds. Think about that for a moment. The people who truly belong in your life will not shrink away from your light. They won't call you selfish for having boundaries. They won't trip you for choosing rest over constant availability. They won't disappear the moment you stop carrying all the emotional weight of the relationship. Instead, they will rise with you. They will celebrate your no because they respect your lies. They will see your strength as an invitation, not a threat. And when you cry, they won't tell you to toughen up. They'll sit with you in the mess, knowing that vulnerability is not weakness, but courage in motion. This is why, even though healing feels like loss at times, it's actually the beginning of deeper connection. It clears out the relationships that were built on pretense or imbalance and makes space for something more authentic, more nourishing, more aligned with the woman you're becoming. The discomfort you're feeling now is not permanent. It's the shedding of an old skin that no longer fits. And while shedding always feels vulnerable, it is the most honest thing you can do for yourself. So if you're sitting there wondering why it hurts so much to grow, know this. The hurt is proof that you are alive, that you are brave enough to face what others run from, that you are refusing to settle for a half-lived life. Healing will stretch you, yes, but it will also soften you. It will make you wiser, gentler, and more compassionate with yourself and others. And little by little, you will start to notice a shift inside. The voices of doubt and guilt will grow quieter. The need for outside validation will loosen its grip. And in its place, a steadier, stronger voice will emerge. The voice that says, I deserve peace. I deserve joy. I deserve to take up space in my own life. That's the gift waiting for you on the other side of this messy, complicated, beautiful process. The people around you may or may not understand. Some will resist. Some will cheer, and some will simply fade away. But the most important person in this story, you, will finally stand tall in your truth. And when you do, everything else will find its right place. Healing isn't easy. It wasn't meant to be. But it is worth it. And you, right here, right now, are worth every step of it. The hardest part about healing is not always the memories, the wounds, or even the trauma itself. It's the relationships around you that shift in unexpected and sometimes painful ways. You might expect that once you decide to take better care of yourself, to honor your boundaries, to finally say yes to what fills you and no to what drains you, the people who claim to love you would cheer you on. It seems obvious, doesn't it? After all, healing should be good news. It means you're learning, growing, and stepping into a healthier, stronger version of yourself. But what so many women discover is that this choice doesn't always bring applause. In fact, it often brings silence, confusion, and even pushback. That can feel like a betrayal, a painful twist you never saw coming. The problem is that we live in a culture that celebrates sacrifice, especially from women. You've likely been told, directly or indirectly, that your worth is tied to how much you can give, how much you can carry, how much you can endure without complaining. When you step outside of that script, when you decide that exhaustion is not a badge of honor, that constantly saying yes is not love but self-betrayal, you disrupt the very system that kept people comfortable. And here's the truth. Not everyone around you is ready for that disruption. Some people depended on you staying small, quiet, and endlessly available. When you choose differently, they lose the version of you that made life easier for them. That's why so many women feel blindsided when they begin their healing journey. Instead of support, they sometimes face judgment. Instead of encouragement, they hear words like, "You've changed," spoken as if it's an insult. Instead of feeling celebrated, they feel isolated. And in that isolation, the temptation creeps in to go back to old ways just to keep the peace. You might hear that voice in your head whisper, maybe I should stay quiet, maybe I shouldn't set that boundary, maybe it's not worth the fight. But deep down, you know it is worth it, because going back means abandoning yourself all over again, and you've promised yourself you won't do that anymore. This is where the problem really lies. People misunderstand healing. They think healing is about fixing what's broken, about smiling more, about being easy again. They don't realize that healing often makes you less convenient, not more. It makes you ask harder questions. It makes you demand respect where before you tolerated disrespect. It makes you stop over functioning in relationships where you carried 90% of the weight. Healing isn't about becoming softer for everyone else. It's about becoming softer with yourself and stronger in the places where you once caved. And because that shift challenges the roles others have played in your life, it often unsettles them. Imagine a family where you've always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over arguments, kept everyone calm, and sacrificed your needs to maintain harmony. The day you decide to stop playing that role, the family doesn't suddenly cheer, "Good for you, finally take care of yourself." No, they feel the ripple. Suddenly, arguments don't get patched up as quickly. Suddenly, others have to face the tension you used to absorb. To them, it looks like you're causing problems when in truth, you've simply stopped carrying problems that were never yours. Or think about friendships where you were always the listener, the fixer, the one available at all hours for everyone else's crisis. The moment you stop answering every call, the moment you say, "I can't talk right now, I need rest," Some friends don't thank you for being honest. They label you distant. They accuse you of being selfish. It stings because you thought the bond was real, but in reality, it was conditional. It thrived as long as you abandoned yourself. When you shift, the condition breaks, and the relationship either adapts or dissolves. That's painful, but it's also clarifying. So let's name this problem for what it really is. The struggle isn't that you're healing wrong, or too slowly or imperfectly. The struggle is that healing reveals the truth about the people around you, and that truth is often uncomfortable. It shows you who loves you for you, and who loves you for what you do for them. It shows you who's willing to grow alongside you, and who would rather you stay stuck so they don't have to face their own reflection. It shows you that love built on control isn't love at all, and relationships built on silence cannot withstand honesty. You are not crazy for feeling unsettled by this. You are not weak for grieving it. In fact, your feelings are the most natural response to change. It's normal to feel sad when people you thought would stand with you instead back away. It's normal to feel angry when someone who benefited from your constant giving calls you selfish for finally drawing a line. It's normal to feel lonely when the people who once surrounded you no longer feel safe. These emotions don't mean you should turn back. They mean you're alive to what's happening, that you're awake in a world that often asks women to sleepwalk through their own lives. Many women in this stage start to wonder, am I doing the right thing? If healing means losing relationships, maybe I'm making a mistake. That's the trickiest part, the misunderstanding that healing should be painless. But here's the truth: healing is supposed to be disruptive. It's supposed to shake up what isn't working, to dismantle what was never true love, to burn away the parts of life that were built on self-neglect. If it feels heavy, it's not because you're failing, it's because you're shedding. The problem, then, isn't your healing. The problem is the expectation that healing will be easy, tidy, and universally celebrated. That's a myth, and a harmful one at that. The reality is much more raw, but also much more freeing. Healing clarifies. It separates what was nourishing from what was draining. It tests the strength of the bonds you've built. It redefines what it means to belong, not belonging to others at the expense of yourself, but belonging to yourself so fully that only the right people can truly walk with you. So when you find yourself in those moments of doubt, remember this: you are not too much. You are not selfish. You are not wrong for wanting peace. The discomfort you're experiencing is not a sign you've gone astray. It's a sign you are on the right path. Every tear you cry for a relationship that no longer fits is watering the soil for something truer. Every pang of loneliness is making space for deeper connection down the road. Every accusation of selfishness is actually proof that you've stopped betraying yourself. The problem is real, yes, but it is also a marker of progress. And one day, when you look back, you will see that the very people who resisted your healing taught you exactly why you needed it. You'll realize that the pain of their pushback pales in comparison to the peace you gained by finally standing in your truth. And in that moment, you'll know you were never losing yourself. You were finding yourself all along. Here's the surprising truth that many of us don't see right away. The way people respond to your healing often has far less to do with who you are and far more to do with who they are. That may feel strange at first, maybe even unfair, because when someone withdraws from you or resists your growth, the first instinct is to think, what did I do wrong? Why don't they support me? Why can't they just be happy for me? But the reality is, your healing is not only your journey, it's also a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable. When you change, when you begin to honor yourself, you shine a light on what others may not be ready to face in themselves. Sometimes that reflection feels too sharp for them to look at, and their reaction to you is really a reaction to their own unhealed places. It's almost like this: imagine standing in a room that's been dimly lit for years. Everyone's grown used to the shadows. The moment you turn on a bright light, everything looks different. You can see the dust in the corners, the cracks in the walls, the stains on the carpet. The room was always like this, but nobody noticed because it was easier to sit in the dark. Your healing is that light. It doesn't create the dust, the cracks or the stains. It only reveals them. And for some people, that revelation is more than they can handle. They may cover their eyes, lash out, or even walk away. Not because your light is wrong, but because they'd rather stay in the shadows. This is why healing can feel so complicated. You expect joy, but sometimes what you get first is friction. And that friction can trick you into believing you're causing harm, when in fact you're simply refusing to carry what no longer belongs to you. It's important to remember that healing is disruptive, not just for you, but for every dynamic you're part of. If someone has grown comfortable with you always saying yes, your new boundary feels like rejection. If someone is used to you playing small, your decision to step into your power feels like competition. If someone depended on your silence, your new voice sounds like defiance. And yet, none of this is about them hating you. It's about them not knowing how to handle the version of you that no longer fits into their old expectations. I once listened to a story from a woman who spent most of her life being the reliable friend, the one who never said no, the one who dropped everything at a moment's notice to help others. When she began therapy and realized how depleted she had become, she started practicing small boundaries. Things like saying, "I can't talk tonight, I need some rest," or "I'm not available to help with that project right now." She thought her friends would applaud her for finally practicing self-care. Instead, one of her closest friends stopped calling altogether. At first, she was crushed. She replayed every word she'd said, wondering if she had been too harsh, too selfish, too cold. But as time passed, she realized something powerful. Her friend wasn't upset because she had done something wrong. Her friend was upset because the friendship had been one-sided all along, and once the imbalance was removed, there was nothing left to hold it together. That was heartbreaking, yes, but also freeing, because the truth was revealed. That's the gift of this stage of healing. It may hurt, but it clarifies. People will show you exactly who they are when you begin to change. The ones who are truly invested in you will adapt, even if it's uncomfortable at first. They'll learn to respect your boundaries, they'll cheer your growth, they'll rise with you. The ones who can't do that, they'll fall away. And though their absence may sting, it makes space for new people who are aligned with the healed version of you, not the wounded one. It's counterintuitive, isn't it? We're taught to believe that healing will make us more lovable, more acceptable, more pleasing to everyone around us. But the deeper truth is that healing sometimes makes you less convenient. You're no longer the easy target, the endless giver, the person who erases herself to make others comfortable. You become a woman who takes up space, who says no when she needs to, who refuses to tolerate disrespect. And not everyone is going to applaud that. But here's the paradox: the fewer people who tolerate your truth, the closer you get to the ones who truly love you for it. Think of it like pruning a tree. When you cut back the branches that are dead or overgrown, it looks bare, almost wounded. But without that pruning, the tree can't thrive. Healing does the same. It prunes away the relationships that can't survive honesty. It trims back the habits that no longer serve you. It clears space for new growth. And though the process may feel like loss, it is actually preparation for flourishing. Another woman once shared with me how her healing journey transformed her marriage. For years, she had avoided conflict, convinced that keeping quiet was the only way to maintain peace. But over time, that silence became suffocating. When she finally began to speak her truth, gently but firmly, her husband resisted. At first, he accused her of being difficult, of trying to change everything. She almost gave up, believing maybe she should go back to her silence. But she held firm, not in anger, but in love for herself. Slowly, something shifted. Her husband realized that her voice wasn't a threat, but an invitation to a deeper, more authentic relationship. Their marriage didn't collapse under the weight of her truth, it deepened. That's the other side of healing. It doesn't just reveal who can't handle your growth, it also gives people a chance to rise with you. Some will, some won't. But either way, the truth will come out. That's why this insight matters so much. The reactions you get are not always about you. They're about the other person's capacity, their readiness, their willingness to face themselves. When you stop taking their reactions personally, you stop wasting energy trying to convince, explain, or prove your worth. You begin to see resistance for what it really is: fear. Fear of change, fear of losing control, fear of being left behind. And once you see that, you can respond not with self-doubt, but with clarity. You can hold your boundary without apology. You can walk away without guilt. You can stand tall, knowing that the people meant for you will not be threatened by your healing. So if you feel pushback right now, if you sense tension in your relationships as you step into your healing, remind yourself this is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're growing, and growth always stirs the ground around it. The dust will settle, the right people will remain, and in the end, you will stand in a life built not on who others wanted you to be, but on the truth of who you really are. Once you understand that people's reactions to your healing often reflect their own unresolved struggles, the next step is learning how to navigate those relationships without losing yourself. Healing is not just about insight, it's about action. It's about choosing, moment by moment, how you will engage with the world now that you're no longer willing to compromise your well-being. The first step is recognizing that the people you meet during this journey can be grouped into different categories. Not to label or judge them, but to give you clarity and reduce the emotional chaos that so often accompanies growth. Understanding these patterns allows you to respond with intention rather than fear, and that's where true power lies. There are those who will naturally support you. These are the people who don't need to understand every detail of your journey to cheer for you. They show up consistently, not because they expect something in return, but because they genuinely delight in your growth. They may call to check in, they may celebrate your small victories, or they may simply sit with you in silence, validating your presence without words. These supporters are your allies, and one of the most practical steps you can take is to nurture these relationships. Make time for them, express gratitude, and let them know they are valued. Healing can be lonely if you try to do it alone, but when you identify the people who genuinely want the best for you, you create a foundation of connection that strengthens your journey. Then there are those who resist. Resistance can come in many forms: subtle comments, passive-aggressive behavior, or even outright criticism. These people are often uncomfortable because your growth exposes the ways they've avoided their own work. They may try to pull you back into old patterns or suggest that you're overreacting, too sensitive, or selfish. The practical approach here is to accept that you cannot change their response. You can't make them cheer for you, and you can't make them understand. What you can do is protect your energy. This might mean limiting contact, setting firm boundaries, or emotionally detaching from their opinions. It's not cruelty, it's self-preservation. Your healing is not negotiable, and protecting it is not optional. Next are the testers. These are people who challenge your boundaries, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unknowingly. They may provoke arguments, question your choices, or push you to see if your new self will hold under pressure. While it may feel uncomfortable, these encounters are opportunities for growth. Each test is a chance to practice firmness, clarity, and self-respect. For example, when someone questions your decision to take a break from overworking or to prioritize therapy sessions, your response becomes a lesson in asserting your needs without apology. You begin to realize that saying no is not rejection and setting limits is not abandonment. It is a form of love for yourself and for the relationship. Over time, these small exercises of standing firm accumulate, building confidence and resilience that ripple across every aspect of your life. Finally, there are the mirrors. These are the people who reflect back to you the areas where you still carry unhealed wounds or hidden patterns. Mirrors can trigger old pain, evoke strong emotions, and make you uncomfortable, but they are invaluable teachers. When a mirror triggers you, instead of blaming them, ask yourself, what is this showing me about myself? Maybe it's impatience you need to cultivate. Maybe it's forgiveness you've withheld. Or maybe it's a habit of seeking validation outside yourself. Engaging with mirrors requires courage and honesty. You must be willing to look inward, examine your reactions, and recognize that the discomfort they evoke is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of opportunity. When you use mirrors wisely, you transform what could have been purely painful encounters into lessons that deepen self-awareness and accelerate healing. One of the most practical ways to apply these insights is to create boundaries that honor your energy without shutting others out unnecessarily. This can look like limiting time with people who resist, scheduling intentional moments with supporters, and reflecting on interactions with mirrors before reacting. Boundaries are not walls. They are the framework that allows you to engage with the world from a place of choice rather than obligation. For instance, if a family member repeatedly criticizes your decisions, you might decide to engage only during calm, scheduled conversations rather than in moments of tension. If a friend pushes you to return to old patterns, you might gently but firmly decline without feeling guilty. Boundaries like these are practical, actionable, and repeatable strategies that protect your healing while still allowing connection. Another practical approach is to practice emotional detachment without emotional abandonment. This means you can care about someone without carrying their drama, guilt, or expectations on your shoulders. You can love people and still refuse to let their reactions dictate your mood or choices. When you detach in this way, you reclaim power that might have been unconsciously surrendered over years of people pleasing or over-giving. It's a subtle but transformative shift, from being reactive to proactive, from being controlled by others' responses to being grounded in your own truth. Communication also plays a critical role in applying these steps. Clear, honest, and compassionate communication reinforces boundaries, nurtures relationships with supporters, and engages mirrors constructively. You don't have to justify your growth or explain every choice, but you can express your needs respectfully. For example, saying, "I need time to focus on my health right now. I hope you can support me in this," is far more effective than silence or defensiveness. When practiced consistently, this type of communication sets the tone for how others treat you and demonstrates your commitment to your own well-being. And finally, practice self-compassion. Healing can be exhausting, and the road is often littered with setbacks, emotional triggers, and unexpected conflicts. Recognizing your efforts, celebrating small wins, and speaking kindly to yourself are essential parts of the process. You are learning a new way of being in the world, one that prioritizes your well-being without abandoning connection. Each day that you uphold your boundaries, respond with awareness, and honor your growth is a victory, even if it feels small in the moment. Over time, these victories compound, reshaping not just your relationships but your internal landscape, reinforcing that your healing is not only valid but necessary. By understanding these 4 types of people, supporters, resistors, testers, and mirrors, you equip yourself with a map for navigating the sometimes challenging terrain of personal growth. You gain tools to protect your energy, practice firmness, engage with insight, and build relationships that honor who you are becoming. Most importantly, you learn that healing is not a solitary endeavor, but a journey that includes both guidance and challenge, comfort and disruption. When approached intentionally, every interaction, even the difficult ones, becomes a step forward rather than a setback. The beauty of this approach is that it allows you to stay in your truth without isolating yourself. You can engage with others, learn from them, and grow alongside them while maintaining integrity and emotional safety. Healing ceases to feel like a battle with the world and instead becomes a dialogue between your evolving self and the people who occupy your life. The clarity and empowerment that arise from this awareness transform not only your relationships but also your sense of self, offering freedom, peace, and confidence that cannot be taken away. Imagine for a moment what life feels like after you've navigated the rough waters of healing, after you've faced the uncomfortable truths and stood firm in your boundaries, after you've embraced both the joy and the grief that come with transformation. It's a life that looks and feels very different from the one you left behind. In that life, you carry yourself with a quiet confidence that wasn't born overnight. It's not arrogance. It's the steady assurance that you belong in your own life, fully and without apology. You no longer question your worth because you've experienced it firsthand through acts of courage, through choices made in alignment with your truth, and through the discipline of honoring yourself even when it felt impossible. There is a sense of peace that comes from this alignment, a peace that no one else can give you and no one can take away. In this transformed state, the relationships that remain are no longer accidental. They are intentional, chosen, and nourishing. The people around you are not there because they need something from you or because old patterns allow them to take from you. They are there because they truly want to celebrate your growth, support your journey, and show up authentically. These are friendships, partnerships, and connections that reflect mutual respect, love, and understanding. And in these relationships, you can finally experience what it feels like to be seen, heard, and valued for exactly who you are. The anxiety, the constant second guessing, the fear of judgment, all of that begins to melt away, leaving space for real connection, joy, and freedom. But this transformation is more than just external. It permeates your inner world in profound ways. The moments that once triggered fear, shame, or insecurity now meet a calm, grounded awareness. When someone challenges you, it no longer feels like an attack, it becomes an opportunity to respond thoughtfully and from a place of clarity. When setbacks arise, you face them with resilience rather than despair, knowing that each challenge is temporary and that your worth is not defined by outcomes. Your internal dialogue shifts from criticism to encouragement. You begin speaking to yourself with the same compassion you offer to your closest friends. And in that dialogue, you discover a voice you may have long forgotten, a voice that believes in your strength, honors your journey, and reminds you that your presence in the world matters. The physical sensations of this transformation are equally profound. There is a lightness in your chest where once there was tension. Your shoulders no longer carry the weight of everyone else's expectations. Your steps feel more deliberate, less rushed, as if each movement is in alignment with purpose rather than obligation. Even ordinary days carry a quiet vibrancy because you are living in truth rather than in survival. This is the subtle, often overlooked magic of healing. It transforms not only the way you think and feel, but also the way you inhabit your body and your space in the world. And then there's the freedom of choice. One of the most liberating aspects of fully embracing your healing journey is the ability to choose your responses instead of reacting out of habit or fear. You no longer tolerate toxicity silently, you no longer apologize for being yourself, and you no longer compromise your peace for the sake of someone else's comfort. This freedom does not mean life is perfect or without conflict. It means that when challenges arise, you engage from a place of power and discernment rather than compulsion. You create your life intentionally, not reactively, and in doing so, you cultivate a deep sense of self, trust that carries you through even the most uncertain moments. Perhaps the most profound aspect of this transformation is the sense of self-compassion that develops. You begin to understand that healing is not linear, that setbacks are not failures, and that every tear, every disappointment, every moment of doubt is part of the process of becoming whole. You treat yourself with patience and kindness, acknowledging your growth while forgiving yourself for the ways you once compromised your needs. This self-compassion creates a fertile ground for joy, for creativity, and for the kind of deep, abiding love that can only come when you truly honor yourself. In this renewed life, you also develop a heightened awareness of the subtle patterns in others and in the world around you. You begin to recognize manipulation, dishonesty, and toxicity more clearly, not out of cynicism, but out of discernment. You no longer allow yourself to be drawn into games of guilt, control, or emotional exploitation. Instead, you move through life with a sense of clarity, knowing when to engage, when to step back, and when to let go. This wisdom is hard-earned, but it is also a gift of immeasurable value, one that ensures your future relationships, decisions, and experiences are rooted in authenticity rather than fear or obligation. The transformation also extends to how you view success, happiness, and fulfillment. You no longer measure your worth by external validation, societal expectations, or comparisons to others. Instead, you measure it by alignment with your own values, by the quality of your relationships, by the peace you feel when you look in the mirror. Success becomes internal rather than external. Happiness becomes a choice rather than a fleeting condition. Fulfillment arises from living a life that reflects your deepest truths rather than a life dictated by the expectations of others. And as your own life becomes more aligned, something extraordinary begins to happen in your presence. You inspire others without trying. People are drawn to your authenticity, your strength, and your grace. You no longer need to prove yourself or explain your choices. Your life becomes a living example of what is possible when someone refuses to compromise on their own healing. Those around you may begin their own journeys, influenced quietly by the courage you demonstrate daily. The ripple effect of your transformation lives in ways that words alone cannot capture. Finally, imagine the sense of peace and satisfaction that comes from knowing you have survived, endured, and transformed. You have faced the difficult truths, the painful losses, and the uncomfortable confrontations. You have walked through the storms of resistance, grief, and doubt. And on the other side, you stand taller, lighter, and freer than you ever thought possible. You are living proof that it is possible to reclaim yourself, to honor your own needs, and to cultivate relationships that are authentic and nourishing. In this transformed life, you are both gentle and fierce. You carry wisdom without arrogance, courage without recklessness, and love without sacrifice of your own soul. You have learned that your healing is not just for you. It is a gift to everyone you touch. And the most beautiful part is that this life is not a distant dream or a someday promise. It is available to you now, in each choice you make to honor yourself, to stand firm, and to keep moving forward even when it feels scary. So step into this version of yourself. Embrace the peace, the clarity, and the empowerment that come from knowing you belong to yourself first. Celebrate the victories, small and large. Practice self-compassion daily. Surround yourself with those who lift you, learn from those who challenge you, and release those who cannot rise with you. And as you continue to walk this path, know that every step is a testament to your courage, your strength, and your unwavering commitment to living a life that reflects your truth.